and I don't like being really negative about things, but we have to be honest, really. Hello YouTube, welcome to my channel. My name is Ian and this is Jane.
Hi.
And we've been reviewing Edinburgh Fringe shows in 2021 and all of the other shows that we've viewed, which are linked down below. There's over 35 I think so far. Anyway, we've just watched Syd by Arthur Smith. Now I have to say I was really looking forward to this. Now this is another one of the online shows, and this is a show that you see through the Fringe player, although the show originally comes from the Pleasance at Edinburgh, and it's in collaboration with, which university was it?
Falmouth.
Falmouth, because it was filmed at Falmouth. Now we have to say that there's some negatives and positives about this. Which would you like to do first, positives or negatives?
Well, I think we just talk about it.
Right.
I mean, I don't think I can do.
You can't. You don't want to split it.
No.
Right.
No.
Do you want to read the bit of blurb
Yeah.
off the Fringe website?
Okay. So it says, the story of an ordinary man who lived through extraordinary times, told with love, laughter, and song. A touching and funny tribute to Arthur Smith's father, Syd Smith, who fought at Alamein, became a prisoner of war and ended the war in the notorious Colditz Castle in Germany. In the 1950s, Syd Smith joined the Metropolitan Police and patrolled London's South Bank, meeting a gallery of characters whom he tried his best not to arrest.
Yeah. Now I really liked the idea of this, but I have to say that I found much of the show disappointing. It's really a two-hander. We've got Arthur, who is partly telling some of his own stories tied in with Syd's stories.
Yeah.
And Syd does sound like an incredible man, really. And also he is supported brilliantly by Kirsty Newton on piano and vocals. Kirsty sang a couple of songs which I thought she sang brilliantly, and she played the piano great. I really liked her involvement in the show. Where it fell flat for me was Arthur's singing, sadly.
Well, yeah, I would agree. I mean, I was surprised because I can't remember how long into the show we are.
We were fairly early. We were a few minutes in.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts with Kirsty just playing Roll Like Your Barrel, I think, sort of 1940s piano thing, and her singing that.
Sort of
and
music,
then
musical
a music hall type thing, and then Arthur comes on, and he starts, but then very quickly he was into the first song, which was a quite lamentable sort of song, I think, if I remember right. It was quite sad.
I was just surprised.
Yeah, and it was a bit of, because actually we looked at each other, didn't we?
Yeah.
And with the best will in the world, I mean, Arthur is a fantastic comedian, but he is no singer.
No, I mean the Leonard Cohen worked very well.
Yeah, they use a mix of sort of popular songs, not just from the sort of music hall. There was some Kinks songs in there. He did Waterloo Sunset.
Yeah.
He did there was a couple of Leonard Cohen songs, I think. And because you know that Leonard Cohen can't really sing, then Arthur's voice, which was sort of more spoken rather than sang, worked really. And there were times when he was ably supported by Kirsty singing the melody, and she sort of propped up some of the songs in that way, really. But
Yeah.
genuinely, for me, I wanted to love this, and the singing didn't do it for me at all.
I mean, he had a book that his father had written. It was obviously not published.
No.
And he used that as a... I mean, he was reading bits, that's fine. I mean, because, it was a prop, it was the book. He then had a screen behind him. Every so often that he showed photographs. But it was actually too small because you couldn't see any detail. I mean, there was a point at which it was a big family photograph, and Arthur said, Syd's the one in the middle with the pipe.
Yeah.
But however close I got to the telly, I couldn't
see it. Now, that's a production issue, because I think in post-production they could have, for 10-15 seconds, switched to a full screen view of the actual photos, so you got to see. And I have to agree with you, there was quite a few of those photos. There was photos of Syd in the war, and him as a policeman with a drunken lady, which was quite a funny story, but you didn't get to see it close enough. So I don't, that's a production issue. I think that whoever did the post-production, it wouldn't have been much to be able to show those photos full screen as part of the online.
Yeah, I mean, I think it suffered as well from being an online showing of this, because there obviously was an audience there, but it seemed miles away, and I don't think there were many of them. And a lot of
we didn't actually see them, did we?
No, we never saw them. We heard them. I mean, they did react to some of the humour and the jokes, but they didn't react to all of them. There was quite a lot when there was, I think Arthur was expecting a reaction and there wasn't one. And I just felt my perception of it and what I was seeing was that he was actually uncomfortable.
I didn't pick up on that. But that's interesting. That's interesting you say that.
I didn't feel he was relaxed. And
so, certainly, I agree with you towards the end, where I mean, I think there was a bit of a fluff at the end, which anybody can make that mistake. But he was sort of, he had the cricket bat and he looked uncomfortable then, like.
I was noticing.
Now maybe it's because the whole thing was clearly scripted, and maybe his genius is for him to just do stand-up.
Well, that's what I was just going to say.
Sorry.
I think in not getting reactions, it threw. Well, I'm not saying it threw him, but I just felt he looked uncomfortable, and that he couldn't play off, a full theatre where you get a lot more interaction. And that there becomes a sort of a big, crowd. And I think
comedians work off audiences.
And I think that would have really lifted it, because it was quite flat, and there were some odd things. I mean, it did. This was a particular bit that just didn't work for me. He was describing his how his father had described. The Battle of Alamein, and it was juxtaposed with Arthur's own experience in Paris, being part of a sort of
student revolt.
And so he would say about that, then it would go back to Alamein, and to me it was a weird juxtaposition. I didn't think that worked at all.
That I felt that's part of the writing, and I completely agree with you. I thought that was not mishandled from his point of view, but that is in the writing, because that didn't just work for me at all. I completely agree with you on that. Now, I have to say that I was surprised, because we've just done a little bit of that much research after we watched it, really, to find that this show was first performed in 2018, and it was a sellout show at the Fringe in 2019. Now obviously we didn't have a Fringe last year. Now this is clearly been filmed this year, because he talks about the Fringe being different this year. So it's new, but it just, I mean, I almost felt like they just filmed this one performance. It was obviously live, you know, and I can't stress how much I thought Kirsty was brilliant, especially, like I say, from her singing those two songs that she did, and that sort of grates when poor old Arthur isn't a singer to some extent, because you've got somebody who's so good and she isn't, and he isn't, but it almost felt like they needed to film more than one night and then pick the best night. Now, I don't know whether that was possible. You know, it almost felt like it was an off night or not the best night.
Well, there was no audience for him to bounce off.
Yeah.
And I think that, well...
I mean, is this the world of COVID to some extent? If this would have been filmed, say, 6 months ago, in the height of, as we started to open up, you know, and it was a really, really small audience of, say, I don't know, 10 people or whatever, then you can understand that. But we didn't know how many was in the audience.
Well, it didn't sound like that many.
No, it didn't.
It didn't sound like that many at all.
So, I mean, and this the other reason for doing this review is this show is out there, and he is going to be performing this throughout September and maybe onwards. It's very difficult to really recommend it based on what we've seen, and it has got in the past from The Guardian and people like that some very, very good reviews, but hand on heart, that doesn't feel like the show that I saw.
No, it wasn't the show I saw. So we're not quite we don't know what went wrong, but yeah, that wasn't the show we saw. No,
it wasn't. I mean, we're talking a 4 and 5 star show, and that's not what we saw really. Yeah. So sorry, Arthur, if you ever see this, but it wasn't. I'm sorry, but I don't think it was great. There was bits I liked about it, and I did like some of the stories.
And you're, you know, and Syd
sounds like an amazing person.
Yeah,
you know,
he had a really
interesting life.
Yeah, he did. And to hear what he did and his stories, that was great. It was just, I don't know.
There was something was missing.
Something, yeah.
Or something. You said it. You nailed it by saying something was flat. And it was an hour and 10 minutes, and you know I wasn't bored, but every time I started singing, I kept thinking, oh, here we go again, almost. No, and as Jane said, some of the songs worked better than others, but that felt like a misstep, and his director maybe shouldn't have convinced him, allowed him to sing.
Well, the director co-wrote
with him. Yeah. So right. Okay. Yeah. So that's a point. Yeah. So how many stars?
I'm going to go for a 3.
I'm going to go for a 2. I'm really sorry. I didn't think it was that, but we always round it up, so it's a 3-star performance. And I hope if you go and see this in a theatre, which rather than see this online version, which I can't recommend, if you go and see this in a theatre, I hope it's a better show, and please let us know down below, you know, if it is, because what we saw wasn't what I expected when I started watching it.
No, me too.
And I don't like being really negative about things, but we have to be honest, really.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for watching. If you like what we do, you can hit the subscribe button, and a thumbs up is always much appreciated. But tell us what you think about this if you see this performance. So thanks so much. See you next time. Cheers now. Bye bye.
Bye.